All right, good morning everybody. Well, first of all, I want to thank Peter Coldrake for the outstanding work that he has done. I commissioned the report into a review of culture and accountability into Queensland Government, including the public service, and I'm very pleased that we will accept every single one of the recommendations. Now let me say what I think is the most fundamental recommendation and why it means that Queensland will lead the nation, and that is in relation to the release of Cabinet papers. If you think about this for one moment, it means that Cabinet papers, which are usually held for 30 years, will be released in 30 days. This is revolutionary. Already, I've asked my Director General, so yesterday we hit the ground running. My Director General has been in contact with New Zealand. We are looking at the way in which they release their Cabinet papers, because Peter Coldrake drew extensively in relation to the procedures that are adopted in New Zealand. We have already identified the public servant that will lead the implementation, which is David Mackey. He is the head of the Attorney General's Department. And this afternoon, Peter Coldrake will be addressing the Public Service Leadership Board as well. So work is already underway. I want to thank him for the work. He conducted extensive interviews. It is groundbreaking. As I said, it is revolutionary, and government embraces this. It is absolutely healthy for government to have a health check from time to time, and I think it's actually something that all governments should do. So we embrace it, we're going to implement it, and we've already hit the ground running. Happy to take some questions.
You said you used the words you're accepting this lock, stock and barrel.
Yes, I am accepting this lock, stock and barrel.
Are you going to point the barrels, the culprits, the bullies and the belittlers? You're going to cut the cancer out? It's not part of the recommendations, but is that a natural enough response from you?
In relation to what particular area?
In relation to the bullies and the belittlers who have been identified by Professor Coldrake as being part of this cultural problem, will your ministers be identifying the culprits and sending them on anyway?
Oh, I think there's a couple of things here. The first thing is Peter Coldrake looks at training. That training is really important. You need to have a modern public service that's fit for purpose. And we have an extensive public service that serves the people of Queensland every single day. And Queenslanders know how hard our public servants worked and our ministers during COVID. A world pandemic, nation-leading results, which meant now a nation-leading economy.
So do you take any responsibility?
We'll take one question at a time, yeah.
Do you take any responsibility for the culture that has developed within the public service?
Look, I think we all need to take responsibility, and we will get this fixed. But what I do want to say is that our public servants work incredibly hard. What is needed is more training, and that is exactly what we will do.
Will your government continue dealing with the lobbyists who worked on your state election campaign?
Well, let me say this about that, a couple of things. First and foremost, and let me say it very clearly to every single member of the business community out there, you do not need to employ a lobbyist to have a meeting with my government.
That's what Peter Coldrake found, though.
Well, I'm making it very clear to the entire business community across Queensland, you do not need to employ a lobbyist to meet with ministers in my government. Now, we go out and about, we do our community cabinets, all of my ministers have been out this week across regional Queensland. I myself have visited 2 hospitals. People come up and talk to me all the time. You do not need to employ a lobbyist.
Do you perceive though it was a misjudgment to have those lobbyists work on the election campaign and then enter?
Well, let me say they did not run the campaign. The campaign was run by party office, but there would be every campaign from both political parties across the nation, including federally, that have employed lobbyists during the campaign, and that has been the practice for many years, in fact many decades. Well, what I'm saying now, one at a time, what I'm saying now, if you can just please let me finish, what I'm saying now is that we accept the recommendations. We accept the recommendations.
And given you've accepted that recommendation, will you stop your government doing business with Cameron Milner and Evan Moorhead and their firms for the rest of this term?
Well, he has said it's prospective, but Cabinet will be considering this report on Monday.
Don't you think it's important, though, to be restoring trust for Queensland?
I have said businesses do not need to employ lobbyists. I cannot be any clearer. They do not need to employ lobbyists to meet with my government.
Given how quickly
Yes.
you announce those changes to lobbying rules on Monday?
Yes.
How quickly will you be implementing
Yes,
these?
some of this needs legislative change, so hopefully we can get something into the parliament in August. It will go through the normal parliamentary processes, so I expect this to be up and running by the end of the year or at the start of next year at the very latest. But I'll have more to say after Cabinet on Monday when I can get the legislative timetable and when we can get things into Parliament.
Just to be clear on the future of the
Yes.
bullies and the belittlers identified by Professor Palaszczuk, are they on notice at least, if they're not going to be sacked, are they on notice from you, pay public servants the respect they deserve, because you said they demanded all that?
Oh, look, absolutely. And look, can I say I treat people with respect and I expect everybody else to follow my lead. I do expect that. And, you know, I've said that to my ministers before. The Director General will be saying it to the heads of the departments as well. People need to be treated with respect. But I think also what he has identified too is that some of the integrity agencies can be strengthened, and I think he has made recommendations that some are offices of Parliament. That means you have a very strong integrity bodies in government. He's also made recommendations about the role of the CCC and the role of these integrity bodies. So if you have stronger integrity bodies, they can look at issues around public administration, and the CCC can then focus on corruption and crime. So I think that is also a very fundamental point of this report.
Maybe asking on this.
Yes.
The opposition says you allow this culture to fester. It was under your leadership. Why should Queenslanders trust you to lead the reform?
Because they elected me as the Premier of this state, and I won't be lectured to by the opposition. This is the same opposition that embedded Crosby Textor in Tim Nicholls' office when he was Treasurer for a period of 6 months to sell off the assets.
But a report like this has to trouble you, given this has happened under...
I embrace it. It doesn't trouble me. I embrace it. I asked for this.
trouble you?
No, I embrace it, and we are going to implement it.
Why doesn't it trouble you, though? You
Because
say
it's a health report. It's actually, no, I actually think, okay, I think this is a good thing for government. I asked for it, Peter Coldrake has delivered it, and now we are going to implement all of the recommendations. And as I said to you, have a think about the conventions of Cabinet. This is the most fundamental change that this state and this nation has ever seen. Away from the 30 years of secrecy, it's 30 days. Right? Now, I've been a person who studied government. You know, I've studied overseas. I've been a lawyer. I've worked in government for most of my adult life. Right? The confidentiality of Cabinet has been for 30 years, and now that is going to be completely overhauled to 30 days. That is incredibly brave thinking, and for a government to embrace it is revolutionary.
Coldrake says that time starts at the top. How does the buck not stop with you?
I said I embrace this, and we are going to implement it.
So those public servants,
Yes.
Premier, who said they've been belittled and bullied, you want to give them an apology, at least on behalf of your ministerial staff and perhaps your own. Do you think an apology is required for the way they've been treated?
Well, let me say, this is a large public service, over 200,000, okay? So I think everyone needs to be treated with respect. I said that from day one when I came in. I respect the public service. I don't sack staff. I didn't sack 14,000 staff like David Crisafulli. The opposition has no respect when it comes to dealing with the public service. This public service has got us through dozens of natural disasters, have got us through floods, has got us through cyclones, has got us through the worst pandemic, has prepared the best budget that our government has ever delivered in terms of nation-leading infrastructure build of hospitals. And I've been out there speaking to the staff on the ground, speaking to the people in Bundaberg who are very happy that we're building them a brand new hospital in Bundaberg. That's what public service is about. Now, honestly, if people are not doing their job and they've got time to belittle and have a go at other public servants, then it's time for them to move on.
Staff, it's not sort of squabbling among public servants. It's quite specific.
Yeah, and that's why I think training is so important.
So
And there
training
needs
with
to be.
repercussions too, by way of setting an example with you drawing the line and saying this behaviour and treatment of
Yeah, and that's
public servants
exactly,
won't be tolerated
and
because it's going to cost you your job.
and that's exactly why the training will be so fundamental to this. Regular training. This is about
It's a
this.
lesson in itself, isn't it?
Okay.
How should Queenslanders go ahead getting meetings with your government if they don't need lawyers?
It's very simple. They just write in. They just write in. That's, you know, people sit down and they have their diary meetings and they go through. I'm going to a big Somali event on Saturday. They wrote in and invited me. Okay, this is how people get meetings with ministers. They write in. The other thing we're going to do is with community cabinets. I'm going to go back to a previous example of where at the moment we've got ministers going out to businesses and talking to different businesses or community groups. I'm now going to advertise that the ministers are there, and if they want to have a meeting with a minister in their local area. So this is not about stakeholders flying in from Brisbane to, say, Gympie, or so flying into Townsville. This is about local people being able to say they want to meet with a minister about an issue that concerns them. Yes, Lydia?
Just on Peter Coldrake's finding about the culture starting from the top, how do you personally plan to change the way that you do business as Premier to address that culture?
Well, for a start, I'm going to be addressing the leadership board of the public service. I'll be making it clear to the ministers that the training is absolutely critical for their staff. And, you know, like I said, this is a great refresh. This is a great blueprint, and it's something that we absolutely embrace 100%.
Premier, you'd announce the person.
Yes.
The person who will lead the work around the cabinet changes and
Yes.
papers. Coldrake also pointed out a bunch of recommendations from other reports and reviews over the years. There's also the work coming from the Triple C by the
Yes.
Joe inquiry, the review of the Public Records Act.
Yes.
You're going to present as well. Does the, I suppose the scale of all that work need a specific person or body as well to be able to tackle the work, I suppose? How are you going to specifically make sure that
Yep, we actually have a cabinet office that has been set up. So that will be the body that will end up driving it all. They have been set up for the last few months since the beginning of this year. But we need to get the implementation team in place first, so that's happening. Yep.
Was it a mistake allowing a lobbyist to work out of 1 William Street during the 2020 campaign?
I accept that perceptions could have been negative around that, and it's ruled out. It'll never happen again.
Premier, if the report doesn't come to you, do you concede that it would trouble Queensland?
What I concede is that this is a health check on government, okay? And what I'm saying is I have read it and I'm implementing it, right? And I'm taking personal responsibility for ensuring that the recommendations are implemented, okay?
Why couldn't yesterday's appointment be rescheduled?
It was an emergency.
How far in advance was that appointment booked?
Look, I just had to get it done, all right? I'm sorry. I was in my office working, and I would have loved to have come and seen you. I was hoping to see you in the afternoon, but unfortunately I couldn't speak, okay?
You said there was stupid politics. You would have witnessed other governments have a third term swagger turn into a stagger. Are you confident that you're avoiding that?
Full steam ahead. I'm excited, full steam ahead.
There's no perception out there that this government...
No, I'm out there all the time.
Professor Coldrake made the observation that the danger
Yep.
would be that governments can be so overconfident about the actual quality of their performance.
Yeah, no, you know what?
Is something you guard against?
Well, actually, it's something that I do guard against by going out and meeting with the people, right? And I was in Bundaberg the other day talking about the new hospital. I was at Kiwi too, meeting people and they were coming in. I remember a lovely lady stopped me and told me about how her husband was in the hospital at the moment and how much good care he's getting at the hospital. So I get grounded by the people. I'm out there talking to people all of the time. And Queensland has this bright, exciting future ahead of it. You know, some people, you know, down south might criticise us getting the Olympic Games, but that gives us something to focus on, and it gives inspiration to our young people, but also to our budget is about a national issue about healthcare and making sure that people get good quality access to healthcare. Yes.
How can people trust your government when Mr. Coldrake brought up the fact that there are staff who are going out of their way to suppress documents and right to information requests, and they're worried about stuff ending up.
But he's strengthening the Information Commissioner. So, I mean, this is good. This is good because he's strengthening all of these integrity bodies, which is good for government.
But the fact that he's having to do that, is that not concerning?
No, because it's a review. Newbury did a review on some aspects, and people have done like piecemeal, but this is like having sort of like a bird's eye view of everything, and then saying this is how we can strengthen the integrity bodies, and this is how the CCC can operate, and also to a very clear complaints mechanism, so people know how to put complaints forward.
But the report found that those processes that are in place are being abused to delay and block information being released. So are those people going to...
I think people need to understand that there are privacy issues. So there is a Privacy Act, and a Privacy Commissioner. So there are some of those elements that are always going to be there. And I think they try to do their best. But like I said, the strengthening of these integrity bodies is a good thing.
But Professor Coldrake was
Yes.
talking specifically about people being worried about stuff ending up on the front page of the paper or in the news, and that was their motivation for suppressing the news.
Well, he might have made those observations, and I would hope that's not the case. Yeah.
But that's what he's...
Yeah, but I would hope that's not the case. Well, what are we doing about that? Well, he's strengthening all those integrity bodies. That's great.
Will you be speaking to your ministers about changing that culture, not putting pressure on public service not to release documents, stamping out bullying, getting ministers to identify if there are bullies in their office?
Yeah, well, the key to that is training. It's absolutely regular training, and that's exactly what I want to put in place.
And that can change the spots of the leopards, can it, Brent?
Sorry?
That will change the spots of the leopards.
No, what training will, well, if people don't know what they can and can't do, it's a bit hard to criticise them. They need to get training about this is how you must behave in a workplace. Okay? Some people naturally do it, some people don't.
What's that say about your initial screening processes if these people have gone through? They're throwing around the weight of their ministers, bullying public servants. I mean, would you look at that as well?
Well, it's unacceptable. I've said it's unacceptable.
Identify those for potential for suicide.
Well, what we are looking at doing now too is we're bringing in a lot of people who haven't necessarily worked in government before but have worked outside to come in and have fresh perspectives. And I've done that in my office and it's worked very well. I've got people who've worked in law firms. My Chief of Staff has worked in Department of Treasury down in Canberra. I've got other people who've worked in other professions. I had a police officer who came in as well. So I think you need to broaden the depth of the talent. And this is a challenge for all governments, not just Queensland.
Does your government have an over-reliance on external consultants? Peter Coldrake spoke about a hollowing out of the public service because of that.
Yeah, that's a good question. And if you remember, you know, many times some people in this room have been attacking us on public service numbers and attacking us on the number of SES. What Peter Coldrake has said is that we should actually strengthen that SES sector. Now, that's a good thing. Why is that a good thing? Because you need to keep the profession of a good public service who has the experience and the understanding of different topics to be able to do that work in-house. So yes, I do think that is another good health check, that we need to increase the capacity of people to do that job in-house rather than look externally. Now, the other thing I might say too is that a lot of times companies and firms are actually taking those good public servants into their fields. So the challenge for government is to keep them in government with a career prospect.
Can I just clarify
Yeah.
in response to my previous question?
Yeah.
So you won't rule out doing business with Mr. Milliman and Mr. Moorhead until Cabinet considers that?
I said that we'll be talking about that on Monday, yeah. Okay? Yeah.
You said it could be time for people to move on in relation to if they've been little or staff.
Yeah.
How can you guarantee those people are going to move on? Are you going to look at...
There's warning systems. There are warning systems that can happen. I think it's in, Marina, it's in any workplace. In any workplace, people have the ability to move those people on. But, you know, it's not acceptable, and it works both ways as well.
This touches on tone. There's been a
Yeah.
lot of commentary lately that you've checked out or you're on the red carpet. What do you say to that commentary, and you're 100% committed to your job?
100%. Absolutely.
Are you going to stay the full term?
Absolutely.
Another term?
Maybe. Looking at it.
Can I just clarify too, you said
I love this job, and it's up to the people of Queensland to vote whether or not they want me to continue doing this job.
you're not ruling out maybe not staying until the next election?
Sorry?
You're not ruling out not staying until...
I'm absolutely staying.
But you're not ruling out not running again.
Correct.
Was there anything in the report that concerned you? So before you didn't have any troubles about it, I just wanted to clarify that. Was there no aspects of it that you found worrying?
Oh, I think, well, I've read the report comprehensively, and, you know, some things I was shocked and surprised at, and that means that we need to do better.
What were some of those things?
Well, things that you've raised here today. So, you know, we're going to do that, but I think the recommendations he's made are absolutely, you know, fundamental. And as Peter Coldrake himself said, it's good to have these health checks. And the fact that I called for it and that it's been done is a good thing for government.
But that's what shocked you the most.
Sorry?
When reading it, what shocked you the most in that report?
I think there's concerns about how people can make complaints. I think people need to be able to be sure how they make complaints through the processes. And yeah, and of course we need to improve the culture within the public service and within ministerial offices. Now, can I just move on to other matters? Anything else on that? There are some other matters. Okay. All right. So just in relation to flu vaccinations. So can I thank Queenslanders for coming out and getting their flu vaccines? And we've had almost 650,000 Queenslanders have taken that up, which is fantastic. And I can advise everybody that I've spoken with the Health Minister, and we are now extending that for 2 weeks. I understand that there's school holidays at the moment. People may not have had the opportunity to take their children or themselves to get that free flu vaccine. So we're extending it for another 2 weeks until the 14th of July. Okay? All right, thanks everyone.
Thank you.